Yes, what's happening, people? And welcome back to GavGoesIn. So just carrying on the Nxt Gen series. We're going to go to a certain player that might be relatively unknown, not to a lot of Spanish fans, but probably to a lot of UK fans. You know, someone that, was tipped for a top career. Obviously, can still have it. He's still young. So the way I'm talking is like his career's finished. But yeah, someone that was highly thought of. Again coming through La Masia. And La Masia, the way they just produce talent after talent, has to be studied. It's just madness the amount of talent they produce, regularly. And obviously, this player suffered a very, very bad injury at the start of the season. And if we look at central midfielders, obviously the years gone by, obviously likes of Busquets, Iniesta, Xavi, Rakitic, Cesc Fabregas, amongst others as well. The amount of quality that they've had in that midfield. And obviously they've got to try and find a new batch, which is headed by the likes of Pedri and Frankie de Jong. And now, obviously, they've got youngsters coming through. Gavi's there. Obviously, another one that suffered a bad injury. Casado's been injured as well. And then you've got Marc Bernal, Marc Bernal. And I think, as I said, he suffered a serious knee injury, which kept him out for the whole of the season. And I think only made, about 4 appearances in total for Barcelona. Another one that's 18 years of age. Made his debut at 17 for Barca. And for me, from what I've seen of him, I think there'll be comparisons to Sergio Busquets. Obviously, the fact that he's a defensive midfielder. For me, he's not really a Sergio Busquets clone. Nowhere near it. Sergio Busquets for me was arguably the best DM of his for me, he was the best DM of his generation. And I'll go as far as say that he's probably one of the best DMs I've ever seen in terms of, his press resistance and his quality on the ball. And this was someone that wasn't very physical, but you couldn't get near him. The brain was just working overtime. It's just too good on the ball. And I look at Bernal, and in the few appearances that I've seen him, what I've noticed about him, and again, whenever I see left footers, and it's funny that the previous 2 that I've done the other day, both left footers, and another left footer now. And when I see left footers, I can instantly see what kind of player that they're going to be. So as we know, cultured on the ball, a good passer, long and short. As we know, press resistant as well. But one thing I did notice about him is that he's very tenacious, and you don't usually get that with technicians. And definitely not players that really come through the La Masia. You don't really get midfielders that are that, tenacious. I know Gavi's very tenacious, but other midfielders before them haven't really been like that. But from what I realised, what I noticed about Bernal, he does like to win the ball back. As I said, his passing's very good as well. And he's someone that for me is very mobile. I think he's more mobile than a Sergio Busquets was, and but I think obviously the injury that he suffered, I think it's one of them things where we have to wait and see how he comes back, because he might come back not the same player. But from what I see early on in the early stages of his career at Barcelona, there's someone there that that they can look at and think, yep, he's someone that we look at as being an ex-midfielder, deep line midfielder that can emulate something close to Sergio Busquets. Because personally, I don't think you're ever going to get another Sergio Busquets, But Bernal, as I said, being left-footed, he does add that balance. He's composed on the ball as well. And as I said, from what I've seen of him, I look at him and I think he's a bit of a mix between Fabian Ruiz and Mikel Merino. I think he's got the tenacity of Mikel Merino, and he's got the composure and the sweet left foot of Fabian Ruiz, And as I said, I think we have to see how he comes back from the injury. But I think the signs there are, that Barca do count on him. And I believe he's going to be back in September as well. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how he comes back. But I think if he comes back, you know, and this knee injury, he's fully over, you're going to see another player coming through La Masia. And don't be surprised if someone like Marc Bernal turns out to be, you know, one of the top midfielders in Europe over the next coming seasons. Next couple of seasons, I would say. Obviously, competition for Barcelona is high, and especially in that Spanish national team as well. But yeah, if he does get himself into this team, you know, expect him to get some caps as well for Spain. And there's going to be another one off the production line off of from La Masia, you know. So, as I said, from what I've seen, he does look very promising. But again, we have to wait and see how he returns from the injury. But guys, yeah, let me know what you think. Marc Bernal, as I said, not too much to go off of Marc Bernal. As I said, only had a few appearances for Barcelona. But let me know what you think. Do you think that he's someone that will figure regularly for Barcelona, you know, and can he get himself into that Spanish national team? Because let's be honest, that central midfield area is stacked with talent. So, and it has always been throughout the years. So, do you think that Bernal's good enough to hold down a place in both Barcelona and the Spain national team? Let me know in the comments after the stream's ended. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you smash that like button. And I'll catch you guys in a bit. Take it easy.